the most impactful thing that we talked about today in class was when we went over Nietzsche's idea about free will and kind of just over the readings in general too. Because I remember when I was reading this stuff yesterday, it was kind of really dense, and a lot of the times I found myself kind of going back and rereading this stuff, or like having to really, take my time to digest it. He can be really verbose, and he uses a lot of like complex sentence structures that you don't really see in modern writing, and so it was really difficult in some points to really like understand. And I understand that was like a common theme with other people, so being able to really discuss with them about what they thought was really helpful in like their interpretations. It was interesting to hear that even people who like spend a lot of time talking about him still, and like almost aren't experts on him, or are experts on him, I guess, still have conflicting viewpoints. And I guess I kind of had an example of that, because talking about the idea of free will, when I read about that yesterday, I brought that concept up to my mom. We had this little discussion about it. She, like, to a degree, understood it, but at the same time, she couldn't really get behind the fact that people, there always is a reason for their action, like we talked about, and how they're like, there's not actually free will, in a sense that something like their upbringing, their nature, like something physiological that would be guiding them, or like the circumstances. And that's something like I also kind of struggled with, even like we were talking about that, because like the kind of way that like I saw it when I was reading it was that he did talk about how free will was a myth, and how like like our actions are based on like factors outside of our control. And I agree with that, but I kind of differ on the point that I always assume that like at the same time, like I think like you said, or maybe someone else in the class said, different people who had the same like circumstances, like especially with circumstances, can react to a situation very differently. And I understand that how they react to that situation is also like a outcome, I guess, for lack of a better word, of the other like parts, like things in their life, such as like physiology or psychology or like past experiences. But still, I kind of really didn't agree with the fact that Nietzsche kind of took out like people having agency in their own life in a lot of cases, and how they actually didn't really have free will, but rather they were kind of just responding to like, and I guess like the simplest terms, they were responding to stimuli in their environment by using past experiences to shape exactly what they do. And that was just something that kind of rubbed me the wrong way. And I guess kind of tying that back, like I always kind of believe that like when I explain like with like the moral foundations and like the that kind of stuff, I always believed in people having their agency. So kind of hearing this kind of viewpoint, even though like logically it makes sense, it kind of rubbed me the wrong way, because in the end of the day, I still kind of believe that everyone does have agency in their own life, and I understand that like there are factors, and I agree with Nietzsche on that could influence someone else and like how they act. But I kind of think ultimately people still choose, and it's not fully out of their control in what they do. And that's like, it was interesting to hear how he really interpreted that, and then also like how other people kind of like interpreted it in our class, and then kind of compare that to my experience, and then also like have that experience and compare that with to my mom. And that was just something interesting, and that's really what stood out to me in class today.